Periphery released their new album, A Pale White Dot, on 3 Dot Recordings on May 15th of this year, 2026. And I'm always excited for new Periphery. Let's find out if Derek is too.
Yeah, so 6-string, 30-inch baritone guitars tuned down. And I do appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate the meticulous, and when I say meticulous, it is meticulous craftsmanship of this band. Production qualities are polished. And I would say that for fans of the band, I'm sure they're really into it. For me, I found the album to have an ebb and flow that I didn't love. And I actually found parts of it to be a bit self-indulgent. And so that's not going to be a very popular opinion. And I don't like throwing around the words self-indulgent because I can't play as well as they can. But from a song crafting standpoint, I felt like this record had too much of experimentation. And I would like to have more of the gore and the heavy parts of it. And then you can have the interludes, but these long-standing interludes and just playing with instruments just seemed like the songs were a little bit haphazard.
You felt the same way about the last one. Well, maybe not exactly the same, but it went off in too many different lanes last time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it just, again, I really liked when I first listened to the record, I thought Obsession was a great opening track. There was a really nice interlude in the middle of it, a brief, eerie ambient synth area. But for the most part, the trade-off of the heavy parts and then the more mellow parts really worked. But once you get into talk, it starts the mellow and the heavy it just doesn't fit. It's jarring. It's not a good jarring either.
I prefer, in the landscape of Periphery music, I too prefer the heavy stuff. But as I age, I'm trying to be more open to different stuff. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million more, that bands are allowed to evolve as they grow and mature, and Periphery, I think, is doing that here. I think also that the band has been very vocal that this is the recording of this album, putting this material together, has been a different experience for them than previous albums. It was written in a different order than they usually write. Usually Mark, Misha, and Jake get together and start sketching out riffs and putting loose frameworks of songs together, and then Spencer, the vocalist, and Matt, the drummer, come in later and add their touches. And this album was done sort of in reverse. They had thematic ideas and structures sketched out before any music was written, because, again, as the band has said, these are very personal songs to them. And I don't think they were particularly worried about doing things in a traditional fashion, which I do kind of respect. I mean, the stuff that slams on this record hits hard and is groovy and djenty and very progressive, and I love it. And those are the tracks that I lean to. When I look at my standouts on the record, they're the ones that are definitely nastier, gnarlier tracks. But as you said, I appreciate the craftsmanship and the quality of all the tracks on it. I've been a Misha fanboy for a long time, and I think a lot of like the synth stuff on this record, I believe, is mostly done by Misha. I know Jake is big into some electronic stuff with his one of his other projects 4 seconds ago. So he, I'm sure, contributed to the electronic elements on this too. But I think there's some absolute crushing tracks on this record, and there's some that are not quite as crushing. But I do overall still like the record. I think I like some of the earlier stuff more as a whole, as a finished product. But I still dig the record. So what were some of were there any standouts for you on this?
Well, yeah, let's unpack the standouts. I mean, for me, Subhuman is all gore and is kind of what I would like, and that has Will Ramos on it, and to me, that's the high watermark of this entire record. I'm assuming also Malevolent
Hmm.
was high on your list. I could be
Yep.
wrong, but that was
Yep.
very thrashy paced. Aggressive, good tempo, breakneck speeds. But those two were really stood out to me along with Mr. God, which we already talked about on a previous podcast. And then the other tracks, they lost me because of so much experimentation and those ebb and flows into the mellow. Just again, it seems self-indulgent, and I hate using that term, but it's like, I've said this before on podcasts, and just because you can doesn't mean you should always. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be people out there that take the mellower parts or the innovative, testing the limits of music, and not like it. I just don't like it. My personal taste is like, okay, you're kind of losing me here. And it became a little bit boring once you get through, 8 tracks in. And, and sometimes Spencer's more mellow, clean vocals are really, really good. And sometimes they kind of come across a little cheesy to me.
Hmm.
And again, this is personal taste, but I would have liked to have seen, and again, I would love to see the band do something that's 75-80% heavy with change in rhythms and change in riffs and stuff like that, and then do the interludes at a smaller clip. That's just my personal taste.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that it's self-indulgent. I mean, if we want to say that it's self-indulgent, then I think we'd have to say that almost anything anybody does is self-indulgent, you know, because they're getting into the stuff that they're into at that moment. They're recording it and they're sharing it with all of us to experience in whatever fashion we experience it in. And I think you agree that music is subjective, and what could be an objectively good record that is recorded well, has great songwriting, is produced well, packaged well, may not land with everybody. And that's fine. That's why it's subjective. But if it meets, certain criteria, whatever those criteria are, it can still objectively be a good record. And I
Hmm.
think that this definitely falls in the category of an objectively good record in terms of all those criteria. But like you, I don't like the mellower stuff as much as I like the heavier stuff. I am interested in, it came out 4 days ago, I think. So it's a pretty fresh record still. And Misha, who's very active in the Periphery subreddits and a lot of the forums, has come right out and said, we understand that this may be a different record for you. We ask that you give it some time and kind of get used to it, which I appreciate. He wants people to like his stuff. I think he may also not care quite that much, but I look forward to getting to know this record more over the next couple of weeks and see if some of these tracks that aren't standouts for me start to resonate a little bit more. You mentioned Spencer's vocals. I picked up a little something, and I think I know Periphery's catalog a little better than you do, but Spencer's cleaner, softer vocals have a distinctly different vibe on this to me. I don't know if there's something he changed, and it's not throughout. It's not on all the clean vocals, but on some of the clean vocals on this record, I don't know, it's more subdued. There's something about it. And if you're hearing this or watching this and you agree or disagree, put in the comments below your thoughts on any of this, but specifically, if you too heard something a little different about Spencer's vocals. I think they're good. They're just a little different. I was surprised when I heard it, because for a second I thought, wait, is this one of the tracks with a guest vocalist? And it wasn't. It's Spencer. He's got a slight tonality shift in some of his stuff, which I thought was interesting.
Some of his clean vocals reminded me a lot of Daryl Palumbo of Glassjaw, like structurally, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not a bad thing. And Glassjaw has definitely influenced a lot of modern bands, even though they haven't put out a ton of albums over the years. But I did hear a lot of that kind of structure. But again, there are parts where it just didn't hit with me. The clean vocals just didn't fit the track. It was almost felt like it was forced in there. But that's fine. I would love to take the heavy parts of this record, and cut out some of the lighter stuff that just bored me to death, because I think it would be really, really good. And I look forward to those days in the future when you can customize an experience. An artist puts out their art, but in the comfort of your own home. And again, this is coming. You're going to be able to recut movies. You're going to be able to recut, albums, songs, you name it. You're going to be able to remix it, remaster it, and do all those things that you want to do. And it's kind of happening today. Like, you see bands, out there that are redoing, doing covers. Like I see them all the time. Like, what if Typo Negative did a Beatles song or whatever?
Right.
I think it's coming, but I would love to kind of redo this record and trim some of the more mellow parts.
Yeah, Periphery in the past, I don't know if they did it on P5, but they used to, for a while anyway. They released instrumental versions of all their stuff. And I think there were a few occasions where they released the actual stems, everything, all the individual tracks, and people would go in. And I think a lot of other musicians would use those to learn parts. And, I'm going to see if I can figure out Mark's guitar line and have a backing track that's perfect to do it with, which I think is awesome. But yeah, I suspect you might strike a nerve with some people talking about recutting, changing up the artist's original vision. But hey, to each their own. And that's why music is subjective.
Well, I think art in general is, and we got some flack for using AI. And again, I'll put it out there. I mean, if you're an artist and you want to use our mascot Gain to do something cool, go ahead. I don't care. I think George Lucas said this a long time ago, that the day is coming where movie companies are not going to be making movies anymore. You are. He said it a long time ago, well before he sold Star Wars and Lucasfilm to Disney. And I think the same thing is coming now. I mean, you can already write music and lyrics and everything else with AI, and you don't have to have a musical note in your body. And that is a way for others to create. Do I think that you should not go and put 100,000 hours into, becoming a master of something? No, I think you should absolutely do that. But there is a way for other folks out there to be able to express themselves and make something their own, and make something what they perceive to be better. And those days are coming, and you can either fight it or you can accept it, and it's okay to just turn it off. If somebody takes your favorite song and redoes it, again, covers are nothing new under the sun. Well, if you and I decide to redo a Periphery song, somebody's going to have an issue with it, but too bad. You're not going to be able to stop it because the technology's there.
You mentioned like doing a cover and changing up the style, like you said, Typo doing a cover of whatever. There's a track that's been going around for a while now. It's by Cody Parks in the Dirty South, and it's sort of a mashup of a Johnny Cash track and a White Zombie, Thunder Kiss. They do a pretty good job of it. I think it's pretty well done. I enjoy it when it pops up. But I can imagine that some people are like, how dare you besmirch, Mr. Cash or White Zombie by fucking with the original. It was perfect the way it was. And as somebody who's written music myself, I suppose I can appreciate that position too. Like, I don't want you messing with this, but that it is the risk that you run when you put it out there. And it's doing anything anymore. With the advent of social media, which we take part in, even though I largely loathe the idea of social media, you run the risk of commentary anytime you put something out there. What are we doing? We're issuing our personal commentary on music that other people write. And we have taken some shots for it, over the years too. And it's fine. They're just our opinions. So by all means, feel free. We're opening ourselves up to your criticisms. But it's okay. The AI thing is always a touchy subject, I think, for some people. I appreciate what you can do with AI. As a musician, I have never used AI to write a piece of music, because I prefer to try and do it myself. Would I co-sign for someone saying, I'm really struggling to come up with a bass line for this song? Let me ask AI to write one for me, and then I'll use that as a tool, as a starting point. I think that's a little more okay for me personally. Again, this is just my take, to say, yeah, if you're using it as a tool, that you're not going to then just say, let AI do the work and then throw it on there. I might be okay with that. I don't know. I guess I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, as you said, we've used AI to come up with some artwork, and that has ruffled a few feathers. But I don't know. We're kind of getting off track here because this is Periphery, and I am quite certain they are not using any AI and haven't. If they are, that'd be news to me. But they are very talented guys. I like the record. Let's get back to standouts. You called mine. Mr. God, Subhuman, and Malevolent they are the ones that definitely stood tall for me on this record. They've all got a little more to them. And Will Ramos on Subhuman is
Caveman.
Absolutely fantastic. It's so good. Malevolent is a Mark Holcomb driven track. It's kind of a riff fest in his words. Mr. God, again, we talked about that one before. It's got great tones. It's chuggy. It's chunky. And I think as the first single, Mr. God beautifully represented what the overall flavor of this record was going to be with the use of those baritone guitars. What standouts for you? I know Subhuman was one.
Yeah, oh no, all the same ones. And what infuriated me was Neon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
There's a massive crushing climax that rewards you for sitting through, and I have a note here, self-indulgent synth wave elements, that the first half just feels like 80s, neon drenched dreamscape.
Sure.
Is what I had written. And when the heavy guitars finally kick in, I'm like, oh, we're finally done with this. And it's great, and for me, it was just like kind of infuriating that you had to wait that long to get to the meat and potatoes of the track.
Yeah. Sure.
And so if you had cut off the dreamscape portion of it and just put in a shorter song with the meat and potatoes, I would have loved it. I would have thought it was great. But yeah, I mean, I thought Malevolent was thrashy. I love the speed of it. Subhuman was just caveman chug, start to finish. Mr. God, we talked about it on a previous podcast. Love the riffs. It's just a filthy track. And then I did like Obsession. I thought that it was a good intro. I thought from a song structure standpoint, the ebb and flow of mellow to heavy, it worked on that track. And I was pumped because I think you had called me after I had listened to Obsession, and I'm like, I'm getting into the rest of the record. If the rest of the record's like Obsession, then great. And then I literally drove around running errands, listening to it, going,
no.
Does that need to be there? Why do we have to go down this rabbit hole? I appreciate the musicianship, but for me, the song structures of most of the album are just boring.
I love it. Yeah, that's cool. I meant to mention to you, if you like the vibe of Obsession, with the blast beat portions, it is absolutely worth your time to check out Haunted Shores. Haunted Shores was a band that Mark Holcomb was in back in the day, and as bands do, it just kind of fell apart. Guys went here and got jobs and whatever. And Mark wanted to keep it going sort of as a studio project, and he then later on brought Misha in. So it is Misha and Mark are now Haunted Shores, and it's just a studio project, but it is a lot of Haunted Shores is very similar to what you hear in Obsession, those heavy sections, and it is fantastic. I love Haunted Shores, so definitely worth a listen if you're looking for that vibe, a little more consistent heavy stuff. I'm not aware of light duty stuff with Haunted Shores. It's all pretty aggro stuff.
Well,
but
I will
definitely worth a
definitely,
listen.
yeah, I'll check it out, and I will pass on the last track, which is a pale white dot.
Oh,
Um,
the instrumental closer?
it just, I mean, talk about abandoning metal altogether, and the question has to be asked: who do they fancy themselves as? Are they a metal band or are they not?
Well, you know what? It doesn't matter, I guess. I mean, it matters if, and this is a two-part answer. Who do they think they are? I think they are whoever they want to be when they're writing that material. And I think that's fair to let them be that. Um, but also, we are living in an age now of largely single-based music distribution with Spotify and Apple Music and all that, where not nearly as frequently do people put on a record and listen to it front to back. We've talked about this before. And the ability to build a playlist with your favorite tracks from any album or any band or whatever, like you could build some pretty heavy duty Periphery playlists that had none of their lighter duty stuff on it. And obviously songs like A Pale White Dot would not land on it. I think on its own, it's a beautiful piece of acoustic guitar work with some nice ambient stuff in there. Mark's playing is great. It's great acoustic riffs, and it's recorded beautifully. The guitar sounds fantastic. But, if you put that after Subhuman or Malevolent, it's odd. So I will not beat up the band as much as you will for some of their choices. And some of that is because I'm just a fan. And because I'm a fan, they can do no wrong ever. You know what I mean?
And I will say this, they haven't done anything wrong. I'm
Of
not
course,
like
yeah.
offended by it. I
Right.
just, again, it's personal preference, and part of having a blog is having an opinion and feeling. But I do a playlist myself, and every year I have the best of 2026 this year, and right now I've got Lamb of God, Dead Nate, Rob Zombie, Mull, and I'm forgetting somebody else, but they're not going to make it because of the mellow stuff in my personal little orbit, my little world. And it's a small little world of me driving around in a car and my kids occasionally with me, and sometimes, Heidi. But other than that, it's like, it's my little world, and I just couldn't put it in. I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of the mellow stuff. If the whole thing, 80% of it was the heavy stuff, it would have 100% made it into my best of 2026.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's subjective. There will be people who might listen to us talking about this and think we are absolutely fucking batshit crazy for not liking the entire record. And that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is that you
Yep.
could take any one of those people and we
Yep.
could listen to their top 10 records and we would find stuff in there that we didn't like too. So it's subjective. I think it's all really, really, really well done. I just don't love all of it because it's not all the stuff I'm into. But I appreciate the talent that it took to produce it and the overall quality level of the record. I would not give it a 10 because there's stuff that just doesn't fit everything that I love. But that's cool. That's the great thing about it. I remember talking once with somebody about a Dream Theater, a live Dream Theater. I think it was Dream Theater live at Budokan. It was like the early 2000s or something. And he was like, this is, Mike Portnoy does nothing but double kicks. There's no musicality in there. And my buddy was sitting next to him and he's like, oh, is that so? Well, let me hear your fucking record and watch your concert video while you're playing live at Budokan. And that always stuck with me. Like,
Yeah.
it's easy to critique when you can't do your shit, do that shit yourself. So I always think about that when I'm like, I don't think I like this record. Like, well, I haven't put out anything any better, so who am I to judge?
Yeah. Well, it's, sometimes you have to put your nose down. And again, I prefaced it with, I can't write music the way that Periphery does. It's just a personal taste as somebody who's listened to music for a long time and been in the media and so on and so forth. And, I personally, I like Frozen Souls, No Place of Warmth. That's another one that's on my best of 2026 for like front to back. That is a absolute banger death metal record, but they don't have interludes of, experimentation. It's heavy. Real heavy, which
It's
is
just
when you're in
gnarly.
the mood for death metal, It's gnarly, it's knuckle dragging, and it is everything that you're looking for from a death metal record, a modern death metal record that is just perfectly produced. And so that made it over Periphery because they're consistently what they are for me.
And what you like. Yeah. And that's fair. That's a fair assessment. But I dig the record. I will continue to listen to it. There will be tracks that I don't listen to as much, for sure. But I've done that with their entire catalog. So I was just excited to get new Periphery because, man, when they do the stuff I like, holy shit, do I tend to love it. And there's some tracks on here that I love. So,
Yep.
In that regard, great record. In that regard, it's a great record. And I can't wait to get into whatever we talk about next.
Sounds good.
All right, man. See ya.